no, it is definitely. Hello and welcome back, everybody, to the top 8 for the third weekly of the Eternal Tournament Series Season 3. We are going to jump into game here between Alunga and Sorlix. And Alunga is on this Fire Time Shadow deck, FTS. There you go. And he is going up against Sorlix, who is on Rakano. One of, actually, I think both of our Rakano players made it into top 8 today.
And we did see this matchup earlier where Alunga was unable to deal with a bunch of Silverwing Familiars and kind of just got run out of the gym. Sorlix's build is a bit different. He has Copperhall Bailiffs in that position, which are actually still reasonably good against Alunga's deck, but certainly not the unbeatable threat that Silverwing Familiar posed.
Yeah, it definitely is a much different build when you consider the Copperhall Bailiff. Still an excellent card in this matchup, like you were saying. Does put in a lot of work against Alunga's tokens, but doesn't have the inevitability or the protection that you're guaranteed when you have the Silverwing Familiar. Lord, losing the names today, guys. Yeah, Silverwing Familiar, though, does provide like a very nice sense of protection, essentially.
So as we see again here, even though Sorlix doesn't have access to like the Silverwing Familiar, they are still putting Alunga under a huge amount of pressure, and Alunga's just kind of spinning their tires, drawing cards, devouring these Ephemeral Wisps. And even next turn, like their best play is like Vault of Praxis, like that also doesn't affect the board. So Alunga is very far behind the 8 ball here, and we'll see if we can deploy anything to catch himself back up.
Yeah, he's going to need something big here, because I think this clock and these war cries have just become too much. I want to say that six war cries on top of the deck, at least 5. So the first unit that gets hit by this is just going to be absolutely massive. Alunga with the Combust take care of it, but not any answers for the rest of the board. Has these Ephemeral Wisps to soak some damage, but that's not really getting it done right now, unfortunately.
It's a little awkward how the Ephemeral Wisps resolve with the Vault of Praxis. They come into play before you get to play the Vault on for Enforce. You don't draw the additional card.
Yeah, definitely a little bit awkward here. Curious that he's actually taking out one of the Ephemeral Wisps, since they were both going to have to block the Crown Watch Paladins more than likely anyway. You could have actually gotten an extra point of damage in by just swinging and then actually taking the sword to the other one. Pair of Combusts coming up. Not bad, but unfortunately it doesn't deal with the weapon, and these Crown Watch Paladins have the Aegis on them, so it's not really going to be the answer he's looking for.
Yeah, if we've learned anything about this token deck today, is it has a very large problem dealing with Aegis creatures. They do have Torrent of Spiders and stuff like that to deal with it, their own weapons, the Living Spike, but it's just early game when you don't have those things, you just get run over.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, there's so many Warcry triggers in Sorlix's deck now, like on the top. Like whatever unit he pulls, he might just rip some sort of equipment and just go like +5/+5, or sorry, not +5/+5, like +10/+10 on a plate and just absolutely run over here.
Like I feel like Sorlix could just never draw the thing that they Warcried and still win. And if they do, it's not close.
Yeah, and this is going to not quite be the game, but may as well be. Alunga's going to go up to 12 here, but then back down to 2 with a very formidable board staring him down. And I don't think there's any combination of cards that can get him out of this one. He can't actually...
So he plays land, gets back both Wisps. He can deploy the Grenadin Drone, sack 2 creatures to kill the 8/8 Crown Watch, and then he has 2 blockers for the sword and the other Crown Watch. It's a very precarious spot, but he's not stone dead.
Well, he can't actually sacrifice and take care of the 8/8 Crown Watch. I don't think there's any way for him to do it. Well, ripping the Annihilate now is going
I thought the Devour was a Combust. I thought the Devour was a Combust.
Oh yeah, no. That wasn't a Devour, but the Devour actually is just as important in a way here. Ends up ripping the Annihilate, which he needed to actually weave together with that Combust to take down the 8/8 Crown Watch Paladin. And now he's in a somewhat reasonable position, but if you notice, there was only 1 Warcry trigger on top of that plate that he played. So there's certainly either another unit on the top of his deck with a stack of Warcries, or he did draw another another card, another unit or weapon that is just full of war cries right now.
There's some like Emrakul type creature on top of his deck somewhere. We'll just see if he ever draws it.
Yeah, it is interesting though because until Sorlix can find some way to produce overwhelm, like I think Olunga actually has managed to stabilize this game somehow. Like I think when he hit that turn where he was able to rip the Annihilate into Combust and still establish the Grenadin drone, that might have just been enough. Like he's got this wall here built now, and these ephemeral wisps are coming back every turn, and we see the Smuggler stash in his hand as well.
Yeah, and actually, if you look at Sorlix's list, he only has one more Deep Forge plate and like 4 Valkyrie Enforcer that can fly over these. So he's actually not drawing particularly live. He will continue to accrue these Warcry triggers, get like large creatures that can like threaten this down. But Olunga does still have the Combust, so maybe this game is not over. I think actually Olunga might be favored from this spot.
Yeah, he very well may be. I really did think this game was over, but oh, there it is, the 1919 hammer that we've been waiting to see.
That's actually like the worst thing for it to go on because it doesn't really like affect anything. It's just something that'll get chump blocked a bunch.
Yeah, it doesn't particularly, and this is a smart play out of Olunga, clearly having practiced this deck a little bit, sacrificing 2 ephemeral wisps so he's guaranteed a card draw next turn from his vault in play. And
yeah, it looks like he's going to be able to just, if he can get to like scrap tanks to turn the corner. He does have the Smuggler stash, which doesn't currently do anything. It just gets back Grenadin. But moving forward, if they're able to find a weapon, that will matter quite a bit.
Yeah, are there any Stone Scar Mauls by chance in the list? Like anything with Overwhelm? Is there any way for him to push this extra damage here? Or is Olunga really just drawing for the Valkyrie Enforcer or the plate?
Yeah, it looks, based on what I'm seeing for like list, there's just 2 Deep Forge plate, one of which we've already seen, and 4 Valkyrie Enforcer. And outside of that, there's really...
well, there was a waiting prompt there, I think, at the end. So I think Sorlix is holding a torch. How many? There are 4 torches in the list.
Yes, there's 4 torches. So he could draw 2. That is another out.
So he's got some live torches. So he's got a few ways now. Still trying to attack in though, and maybe not the best decision anymore since these ephemeral wisps are just actually cycling cards from Olunga. This might just be a mistake, honestly, for Sorlix to keep attacking in here.
It's interesting because, like, if that Warcry goes in a weapon, that weapon matters a lot. Like, the Warcry does matter. You're essentially Warcrying 1 to allow your opponent to draw a card, which probably isn't an exchange that's worth it. But you really do need, like, what Sorlix needs is, like, a bunch of creatures. They just need to, like, draw a bunch of creatures, like, for the rest of the game so they can actually make forward progress through these ephemeral wisps.
Yeah, and this is really just like a clock here. We're looking at Sorlix needs to find the Deep Forge plate, the Valkyrie Enforcer, or a follow-up torch. Because I'm assuming it's a follow-up torch, though he does have Finest Hour, so that could also be a Finest Hour. Not entirely sure.
Yeah, it certainly could be that as well. Interesting to see, what is Olunga drawing to turn the corner? I believe it is the scrap tanks are the main thing. And the Oblivion Spike as well. The Oblivion Spike might get to a point. No, the Thermos keep coming back. I was going to say, maybe we can get the Oblivion Spike up to 21-21 and kill this Crown Watch.
Yeah, that's going to be difficult, but not impossible. Interesting that he's going to take Combust here. He's decided that he just doesn't want to deal with this 21-21 anymore. And
yeah, he does have the stash to get back the scrap tank, and this like takes out Sorlix's only threat.
Yeah, very true. Since Corey does discard the scrap tank, he will just be able to Smuggler stash it back. And Smuggler stash with that scrap tank is going to be pretty gnarly since we're seeing these ephemeral wisps coming back every turn. And that's even if Sorlix can manage to have some sort of like a defense here, which might be hard for him.
Yeah, it's really cool to see Olunga pilot this deck. All their sequencing is very on point, doing that all before you play the powers and get back the wisps, draw a card. They're piloting this deck very well.
Yeah, absolutely. And he's put himself up to 6, so he's getting close to being out of double torch range. Let's see if he can escape it in time. Sorlix with the power. And
there's the Scribe.
Yeah, Scribe's going to be pretty nasty. I think this is the time, though, where Olunga is looking to go fish that scrap tank out like you were talking about.
Yeah, he does get a Grenadin drone as well for value, so he's going to have a lot of 1/1s and then the big old scrap tank that gets bigger whenever anything dies. This game
Yeah,
really came down to Sorlix not drawing the threats that they Warcried in a reasonable fashion. Like having it all go onto that hammer and like just never drawing anything else was just so bad. And as like someone who's played around as Rakano a lot, I've been there. It's awful.
yeah. You know, honestly, thinking back on it, I actually don't think Alunga needed to get the scrap tank this turn. I think you needed to actually prioritize playing the Temple Scribe here to make sure that there's just absolutely no way you can lose this game.
Yeah, I think you can stash back the scrap tank. I don't think you can play it. It's just like the only way you lose is 2 torches right now. I think that just you play the scribe and cut off that out.
Yeah, exactly. Ooh, Jack coming down, so he's going to go ahead and silence and stun up the scrap tank. And he'll at least provide a blocker in the meantime. So some of these 1/1s will be start to die off a little bit, but Lunga definitely has the ability to reload here and just way more power than he even knows what to do within his hand.
Yeah, this Jack, like, it's not really good at blocking. It's not really good at attacking. Just all these giant creatures just can't do a lot against this incredibly wide board and these Ephemeralisps.
Yeah, imagine if Alunga even had like a single obelisk on this board. Like, this game would have been over so many turns ago.
And that's like an interesting thing about Alunga's deck. It doesn't even play Obelisk. It's Brimstone Altar is the payoff, per se. I can't imagine 0 Obelisk is correct for this archetype, but it's certainly working out so well for working out well for Alunga thus far.
Okay, and we are seeing... Yeah, we were just seeing basically the end of this game coming down. Like, I think now that he's at 8, he's like way, way, way too far out of reach. And the amount of damage that we're just seeing coming in, it's not going to be quite lethal, but it will put him down to a very low health total and an assembly line to follow up. I don't know if he played units this turn. I don't think he did. So yeah, that'll be another card draw and picks up an Oblivion Spike for his troubles.
I like how he just like played the assembly line on a board that didn't get all 3 tokens just cause who cares.
Yeah, really. And not even playing his power every single turn either. Definitely giving himself multiple chances to bring these wisps back. Although kind of unnecessary because you'll probably deck yourself before you'll ever play this much power drawing those wisps back.
Yeah, I don't know if we're going to need to bring the wisp back 7 times.
Yeah, probably unlikely. He's definitely, yeah, he's got 8 power in hand, discards a 9th one. Probably could have just afforded to play that 9th power there instead of let it go to the yard. So that's the only real misplay I've seen out of Alunga. Other than that, it's been very smooth sailing. He's piloted this deck incredibly well so far. And we do end up seeing the concession out of Sorlix, so that's going to give Alunga the first game. He's up 1-0 right now.
And worth noting that these are best of 5 in top 8, not best of 3. So Sorlix does have a decent amount of time to try and battle back and win the whole match.
Yeah, he does have time to bounce back, so we'll see. Hopefully all the players are aware of the sideboarding rules. By that rejected challenge, I'm hoping that we get the issue out, and that doesn't mean Sorlix is trying to sideboard. So I think Alunga is going to go ahead and take care of figuring that out right now. Let's go ahead and take a look. So, yeah, didn't see any Copper Hall Bailiffs there out of Sorlix. That would have helped him a lot there. I mean, he had 3 in the main board, and any of those drawn would have actually helped considerably just turn off all the tokens that Alunga was beating him with, and essentially given him what would have been like a seemingly infinite clock to try and draw his torches and draw that other Deforged Blade.
Yeah, it's interesting though, because Copper Hall Bailiff is actually only good in like that board state where you need to stem their clock, because up until that point where Alunga's turned the corner, those tokens are just chump blocking and like getting sacked for value. They like essentially don't really ever attack. The power doesn't matter. So Bailiff really doesn't have much of an impact on them. When we see as this game starts, Alunga's actually missing a color, which is pretty problematic given their hand.
Yeah, he's missing the most important of his colors, really. Like, if he was going to be missing one, fire is one of the it's either fire or shadow that you really can't afford to miss, but most of your units come down from fire, so until he finds a fire sigil, he's not going to be able to play any of these units or removal, and that will give Sorlix the chance to put a serious beat down here with his early Warcry units. And
yeah, there's any deck equipped to punish people for missing power drops, it is Rakano, and here you see the Hammer of Might putting on a very, very potent clock.
Yeah, it is very easy for Alunga to come back, though, if he could hit a fire. Like, all he really needs to do is drop this grenade drone and fire it off into combust, and that will take care of the biggest threat right now. And whichever huge threat that Sorlix has got a Warcry triggers on, if it's another unit like this Paladin, it's possible that he'll also be able to find some combination.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. He actually would have been able to deal with this draw from Sorlix pretty easily if he had the fire. The combust could have taken care of the 2 early creatures. This Crowd Watch might have posed a problem, but it would be much smaller because a lot of the Warcry wouldn't have happened.
Yeah, it would have been probably closer to like a 3-3 or a 4-4 instead. But yeah, unfortunately for Alunga, going to see him go down here in a very quick game, missing his fire influence, and Rakano doing what Rakano does best, which is taking off and taking a very quick game. Turn 5, I believe, is the victory there. So
beating up a goldfish.
Yeah, very, very similar. So now we can go ahead and check out these players' sideboards since they'll actually have a chance to sideboard. Let's take a look at Sorlix with that Rakano deck, because I'm curious as to what we're going to see him sideboarding, because it seems like he's going to have a little bit of a tougher time in this matchup.
Yeah, certainly. And we see from the sideboard 3 Protect, 2 Vanquish, 2 Orc Runehammer, 2 Furnace Mage, 2 Righteous Fury, 2 Soulfire Drake, and 2 Throne Warden. Soulfire Drake is the big one. It's a large evasive creature that can actually attack past all the ephemeral wisps and all that nonsense. It does die to whatever, which is a problem, but it can usually get in for at least 5 damage. The Righteous Fury is also worth consideration, possibly, as a combo with Deep Forge Plate to essentially like one-shot Alunga with a giant creature. So I'm interested to see what they elect for.
Yeah, Righteous Fury is definitely an interesting consideration. It does really depend on if he wants to go for that one shot. We probably see the Furnace Mages coming in because they'll shut off the Vaults and the Oblivion Spikes. Well, also, I would be curious to see if he wants to drop in the Throne Wardens, since they do have the Aegis. While the unit itself isn't particularly impressive, it does give you some health, and the Aegis itself makes it a little bit tougher for Alunga to actually enact his game plan, since he really needs to be able to target your units to do the unfair things that his deck wants to do, like Madness and then sacrifice your own unit to draw cards.
Yeah, certainly. I could definitely expect that. Alunga had several Torrent of Spiders, Madness, Suffocate in their sideboard, Furnace Mage as well. I'd imagine the Torrent and the Furnace Mage are the big ones that got brought in. But we'll see how Alunga sideboarded as we move forward into Game 3.
Yes, we will. And Alunga with at least some power in his right colors this time around, but all of it going to play depleted. So a slower start for him. Sorlix also had a depleted power on turn 1, though, so no Oni Ronins coming out of him. And he probably honestly took the Oni Ronins out. I probably would anyway in this matchup, just because like they die to everything.
I can't imagine they ever get through. Like, maybe it attacks once, optimistically.
Yeah, exactly. And then it just dies to half of a Grenadin drone. Not the best. And we see a decent little start here. Probably we'll see the Suffocate taken, since you can cast it immediately and take care of this Champion of Glory.
Yeah, here we see Quarry just doing nonsense Quarry things, having a bunch of words that it probably need to have.
Yeah, the reduced cost by 1 is very strong. Taking a bunch of already powerful 1-cost effects and essentially changing them to 0 cost is just absolutely nuts sometimes. Casting Suffocate on 0, pretty good, have to say.
Quarry is just a very powerful card, but this Throne Warden presents a reasonable threat. Alunga does have the Torrent of Spiders, does get 2 spiders. That's probably enough to fire it off. The spiders are very powerful in this matchup. It's probably too greedy to wait longer than that.
Yeah, probably. And at least the Throne Warden is protected from any Madness Devour shenanigans for the time being. But that also means that Sorlix hasn't really done anything. And Alunga on the other side, missing power, going to be in the a similar boat anyway, not really doing anything himself. Ooh, and we see a massive hammer come down.
Yeah, this is actually huge, getting to kill these Death Touchers.
Yeah, and Alunga's still not picking up any power, though we do see an ephemeral wisp. So once the power does start flowing, that will be really important for him.
And this is one of the things that makes the Throne Warden really good on the sideboard. It makes the weapon large enough to actually mow down a lot of these creatures, especially the Death Touchers being the most relevant. So while Sorlex was previously brick-walled by the 2 Death Touch binders, he can now get rid of those. The Throne Warden can attack through these 1/1s. He can actually start making forward progress towards Alunga's life total.
Yeah, absolutely. It is interesting to see Auric Runehammer come out of the sideboard here, though. Not a card I would have necessarily assumed would be coming out of the sideboard, but it seems to be working out reasonably well in this situation. Helped him clean up the Death Touch spiders. We'll also let him aim his attacks a little bit better, maybe if a Scrap Tank comes down.
Yeah, it's like a little bit results oriented because like a big Orc Runehammer is very good in this matchup, but a base Orc Runehammer is just going to be very hard to leverage. It's usually just going to kill a 1/1 and then get attacked back by a 1/1. It did work out that way this game for Sorlex. It's actually paying off pretty huge. It will only eat another 1/1, but getting rid of those Death Touchers was worth quite a bit.
Yeah, definitely. And we see him using the 2-card combo of the Annihilate plus Combust to remove the Throne Warden. Which the Orc Runehammer is going to blow up more than likely anyway, but right now has kind of solidified that. Sorlex having just a massive amount of power flood, it looks like. Your 9 power in the Rakano deck is 4 power too many for Rakano.
Yeah, you hate to see that as the Rakano play. Let's see if he actually does not have any monuments, and he's playing a bit more power to facilitate Jack. So this is kind of the cost of the way Sorlex has built their deck, but it is also probably just a bit unlucky.
Yeah, just a little bit. Looks like, yeah, he is playing a slightly increased power base, 26 over 25, but the one sigil, a very minor detail. Though, does look like it's hurting him a lot right here with 9 sigils, and he picks up that Oni Ronin that I was talking about being in the deck, and yeah, this is kind of where you see Oni Ronin not really shining very much, just kind of sitting there awkwardly as a 2/1. But when you slap a Deep Forge Plate on it, that does make it much better. If Alunga can pick up a undepleted power, yep, and then he's going to get the Madness Devour combo here, and this will push a bunch of damage, grab him a Warcry, and then he'll just get to devour the unit away. And all of a sudden, Sorlex on the back foot again, going to have to come up with something big here.
Yeah, when Alunga gets to this stage of the game where the board is fairly stable, he can get down the Vault of Praxis, start drawing cards off the Scrap Tank and the assembly lines. Then the game's just going to get out of reach pretty quickly. I imagine he takes this turn off to play the Vault of Praxis, so all of these subsequent threats cycle themselves.
And here's an interesting question. Sorlex has been holding a card the whole time. It doesn't seem to be a fast spell. I think if you're going to play a Scrap Tank in the coming turns, you need to play the 3/3 Scrap Tank, because I have a weird feeling that's... Well, I thought it was Vanquish. Turns out it's a Runehammer. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Runehammer not great here, though. This is kind of why I was curious to see the Runehammer come in from the sideboard. It took care of a 1/1, and it'll take care of another 1/1, and then it will be dead. And trading the Runehammer for 2 1/1s, not super impressive out of the card.
Yeah, this Runehammer is the more average case for the Runehammers that I was expecting. The previous one did a little bit more work, but this is why it was a little bit more suspect to bring in the Runehammers. This is closer to the average case.
Yeah, definitely not in my immediate inclusion. I hope the Furnace Mages are in the deck, because if they're not, those Runehammers should definitely be traded out for the Furnace Mages, which just do everything so much better.
And yeah, certainly. And the Burst of Altar coming out here is going to accelerate the clock very heavily. It actually presents lethal next turn, so I'm not even sure if Sorlex can draw here to help out with this game.
Yeah, this is going to be absolutely ridiculous. Sorlex is definitely going to have a Vanquish on hand for this 6/6, and does it look like he found it?
Yeah, so it appears that we're going to be moving to game 4.
Yeah,
where Alunga will have a deciding game.
Yeah. Alunga will be on his decider. He will be up 2-1 here. Sorlex not dead on board, but realizes the writing on the wall and takes a concession. Actually, the Oblivion Spike in hand would have
know
killed
about the Spike,
him,
but the Spike was lethal. Yeah.
Yeah, Spike as a 12/5. Turns out that is pretty good on a weapon. 12/5 down. So players are going to go ahead and take one more look at their sideboards. for Game 4.
It looks like
And
Alunga's comfortable with his. He's probably just going to roll forward. We'll see if Solix decides to make any changes. I would be surprised if the Runehammer stayed in. Oni Ronin also seems underwhelming, but I'm not sure what he has to side into. His sideboard's also very light.
Given that those are the primary cards you probably need to remove from your deck, cards like Oni Ronin. I mean, he did have about eight-ish solid sideboard cards. We'll call it 6 to be safe, but you could definitely bring in the Throne Wards like he did. I would definitely bring in the Soulfire Drakes, and I would definitely bring in the Furnace Mages. And I think he even had some other cards as well.
If you could find room, the protects aren't unreasonable either, protecting you from the very limited removal that Alunga has access to. It's certainly better than Oni Ronin.
Yeah, exactly. Oni Ronin is that 2-1, just super underwhelming in this matchup. Normally, like a little powerhouse of a card on turn 1, Oni Ronin is just so good. But against these token-style decks that also play like Grenadin Drone on turn 1, it's like Oni Ronin's nemesis. Like when you play Oni Ronin on turn 1 and then they play Grenadin Drone, you're just like, oh.
Feels so bad.
That's not really what I was looking for. I wasn't trying to trade my 1-drop with half of a 1-drop, but guess that's what we're doing today.
Here we see Alunga's opening hand with a little bit of awkward mana. The Quarry could fix it. I think that Alunga might need to revisit this mana base because every game we've seen so far has been banner, banner, banner. Maybe it has to be that bad, but it doesn't feel good.
Yeah, it is the unfortunate nature of the tricolor decks is that you're so often at the mercy of playing this very like roundabout power base, essentially. Because you need, in often 3-color decks, you need at least 2 of your colors to have double influence. And it forces you to end up playing just like the full set of banners and the full set of seats. And they come in depleted so often because you just have so many multiples of them. But it's unfortunately the way a lot of these tricolor decks are forced to operate.
Yeah, and Alunga hasn't been punished for it, at least a lot so far. So we see this champion not having the fire side, which is pretty unfortunate. Just a 1-damage clock isn't something that Alunga really cares about. He's going to be able to develop like this assembly line and stuff, maybe devour some things. Unless Sorlix can put him under some pressure, and it doesn't look like he's going to. This Inspire might find something, but it's kind of spinning his tires. Yep, there's another Inspire.
Yeah, 2 Inspires there. That was the only time that the Oni Ronin would have been cool, is if it had been like a 4-3. But yeah. Sadly not a 4-3, so Alunga just go ahead and committing the assembly line to the board, not going to swing or anything like that. And I mean, he started to build towards his game plan. No Ephemeral Wisps handy currently, but we do see the Madness Devour combo.
He still has a healthy supply of chump blockers. He doesn't even need a chump. He can just take 3 right now. He can work towards devouring stuff. Although this Copper Hall is still like it doesn't matter a lot because he's probably going to chump block anyway. They kind of, or their job in life is to die. So the Copper Hole does take out Alunga's ability to crack back, but I'm unsure how much that matters.
Yeah, that is true. Do you see Alunga going for the play that's probably going to start breaking Sorlix's back? We're going to see him steal the unit and devour it. Combust was arguably worse there, taking off the whole board, but Devour drawing 2 cards is always super nice in this deck, and we see another Devour picked up, so Alunga not going to be short on cards or gas anytime soon.
And here's this Valkyrie to present a clock in the air, which does matter, but Alunga certainly has a pretty healthy amount of time to find something to deal with it.
You know, it's a minor thing, but Sorlix shouldn't have silenced the token there. He really should have silenced the Temple Scribe, since we know Alunga, I think anyway, he has stash. Yeah, he has a stash, so
it's a marginal thing, but yeah, that might matter.
Yeah, it's super marginal, but it is like those little play interactions that the players sometimes forget, where you always should silence something that actually has text on it, since generally speaking, there will be some way to recur it. Definitely in these shadow-based decks that are basically built entirely on recursion.
Yeah. So Alunga's like pretty safe here. He does have the Oblivion Spike to answer the Valkyrie unless it gets bigger. That the Righteous Fury and the Finest Hour. The Finest Hour is a little bit aggressive. I think you need to save that to protect your Valkyrie against something like Oblivion Spike. the added 6 damage you're getting here doesn't matter a whole lot if you can't close the rest of the gap. And we'll probably see the punishment here for it.
Yeah, we probably will see it, though. Yeah, I definitely would have liked to have seen the Finest Hour held, but it's not terrible. At least the Righteous Fury on the Valkyrie Enforcer will force the Oblivion Spike off. That would have been a lot worse if it was just a 3/3 Valkyrie Enforcer and the Oblivion Spike had been able to actually take care of it cleanly. We would have been able to see Alunga clean up the board very effectively. And Sorlex is still going to be in a rough position here, dealing with all these tokens. Like, his health total is fine, so he's not particularly pressured, but Alunga kind of does just have his game plan rolling right now if he can find the rest of the pieces.
Yeah, Sorlex does have time to establish other things like this Valkyrie or Deforged Plate, so we will see the Valkyrie come down. And while Alunga isn't under huge pressure, they do have to do something at some point. This Valkyrie is a clock that has to be answered, and they don't really have a lot else going on.
Yeah, interesting. Alunga going to go ahead and choose to swing in with all these tokens here and sacrifice a few. He's going to do this so he can torrent another spider back, since the 1/1 Death Touchers are a lot more useful than just the plain 1/1 tokens.
They're not particularly useful on this particular board, though. A flying creature and a quick draw creature both don't really care about the Death Touch. And then the Hammer of Might makes this not exactly a 2-turn clock, but any other like Torch or Finest Hour could present lethal next turn.
Yeah, completely. If he had like a Finest Hour right there, he definitely would have pressured him. Alunga going to need to draw into Combust and doesn't find it. So that is not game. I'm calling this a little preemptively. Alunga will be at 1, but he is certainly not dead currently. And we're going to see him push in a little bit of damage with these spiders, just trying to set up the health total a little bit better if he can come back. He really needs to find Devour or Combust.
Yeah, any of the sacrifice effects, Combust,
Annihilate, even Suffocate. Yeah, lots of outs here, but Madness not one of them. And with the waiting prompt here, I have to imagine that means he's got a Torch to follow. And we do, in fact, see it coming down. So Sorlex going to fight his way back from match point right there and bring us to an all-around match point in Game 5. We're going to have both players tied up at 2-2 apiece, as they would say. And this is like a really back and forth matchup. Like I think Alunga's biggest problem there was honestly he just didn't have together. Like he never had the vaults together. He never had the brimstone altars. He never had the ephemeral wisps. He had the rest of his deck worked out very well. Like he was able to put a bunch of tokens on the board, but when there are a bunch of 1/1 tokens, and especially when they got neutered to 0/1s, they just really don't do enough against even the most basic units that Sorlex is playing.
Yeah, Alunga's deck is incredibly proficient at clogging up the ground and stopping any attackers there from pressuring his life total, which allows him to set up his long game in Brimstone, Altar, or Scrap Tag. But when he either is presented with a clock he can't jump block, like the Valkyrie, or just doesn't draw his top end, like also happened, it just ends up spinning his tires, playing 1/1s that don't matter, and then dying to nothing in the air.
Yep. Sorlex off to a slow start here in this game. Alunga already has his Temple Scribe down, and Sorlex just going to respond by neutering it to a 0/1 and having this Copperhall Bailiff in play. And curious, Alunga choosing to annihilate here. I'm not sure I'm a huge fan of annihilating this, but maybe he just wants to stop the Warcry train from rolling.
Yeah, that's certainly a reason. He could play the assembly line and look to triple block. That's a little more loose. It gets blown up by a lot of stuff. It's probably needlessly risky. So I could see wanting to prevent the Warcry. Maybe you could like wait till they attack, see what they do, give up one Warcry trigger for the information. But annihilating there isn't awful. And we do see the Valkyrie come down here, and this is like the card that matters. If they can plate it up here to get a Suffocate range, Alunga's going to be in trouble. And there's the Hammer Might.
Yep, there's the Hammer Might. Well, this is super susceptible to Combust or Madness Devour, not susceptible to Suffocate. So Alunga really going to need the Combust off this draw here, and finds a seat. I mean, he is on a 4-turn clock currently, but I have a feeling we're going to see a bit of acceleration on that front.
And we did see Alunga elect to develop their Bolt of Praxis instead of Suffocate the Valkyrie on turn 4. And I think that was a little loose considering like the only card in this matchup you die to is Valkyrie. Like we've seen that play out in the past couple games. Either flying or overwhelm is the way Alunga loses the game. Is the only clock Sorlix can present. And I think when you have the opportunity to kill that creature, you just have to tag it, even if it's like a 4-mana suffocate, just a giant tempo black hole.
Yeah, I think you do as well. And Sorlix now, even with the really nice weapon developed, Brimstone Altar coming down here, he's going to push the 2 damage, and he's going to at least be able to bust the weapon off. So that is pretty important here. At least the giant Sword of Ikaria is gone, but the bird is still looming. And another Sword of Ikaria to follow up means this is almost assuredly going to be the game.
Yeah, because he needs to draw. Oh, actually, no, never mind. It doesn't do it. I was gonna say he needs to draw something to both. He can't draw something that answers both with 1 card. So he will get to Vaz. Oh wait, actually, he has the altar. Never mind, he has the altar. I forgot about the altar.
Yeah, of course. I completely blanked on the sacrifice interaction, but yeah, of course he can sacrifice to the Brimstone Altar. So this actually keeps him alive for at least another turn. And now we see Granite Drum picked up. Okay, he's still rolling. He picked up another card too. So he cycles out of power and choosing whether he wants to sack. I definitely think that is a mistake if he does, so he elects not to. But
here comes the plate.
Yeah, Deep Forge plate coming down in the end anyway, not going to matter. Sorlix closing out the series 3-2 with a impressive comeback. Alunga, unfortunately, just not finding his full game plan in those last 2 games there. Just didn't quite have the piece needed rolling. Needed to find some scrap tanks, better Oblivion spikes. At least he got Vault that game, but he never had time to like really set up and establish it. And he just got pressured too much in the air. And I think you keyed into it pretty well when he chose not to suffocate that Valkyrie Enforcer. That was kind of sealing the game up.
Yeah, like it feels bad to just like 4 mana suffocate, have that be your turn. Like it's a giant tempo black hole. But I think that matchup is so binary. Like you're either going to lose to an overwhelm / flying creature, or you're not. And I think if you have the opportunity to answer one of those things, you just have to do it.
Yeah, I definitely think you do too. Would have been nice. Would have actually kept the Madness around, and the Madness would have ended up grabbing the what is the name of him? Rakano Outlaw. There we go. Yeah, would have grabbed the Rakano Outlaw and been able to do the same sacrifice trick he did with the Brimstone Altar. But yeah, just a little unfortunate for Alunga, but super well played by him. I mean, that deck is really fun to watch. TFS Brimstone, Brim Vault actually is what it's called, just TFS Brim Vault. Super cool deck out of Alunga, and I certainly hope that he ends up bringing that back because I would definitely love to see some more games out of it.
Yeah, certainly.
Yeah, but really, really well played all around. We are going to jump into another game for you guys without cutting. We are going to jump over to, I believe this is EX Kirby on Armory versus Catalyst on what looks like Big Combry on his side. Might also be some sort of Combry aggro type build, though. And we come into a game where EX Kirby has an 11-8 Stone Scar Maul in play right now and an Ikaria to back himself up.
Yeah, this is an incredibly formidable board. The Iron Thorn is nowhere near ulting, which might be a way out of this. That Scorpion Wasp just does help a bit, but again, this weapon, can you kill it on Crackback? Just 5?
I actually do think he can kill it on Crackback, but he's going to have to sacrifice something here. Yeah, he would have to sacrifice at least the Seraph, which is definitely a steep price to pay, but you have to assume that the Seraph is going to die on this following turn anyway, so it's probably honestly worth it to swing in here.
I see just the flyer chip in. He elects for the Seraph activation because he actually couldn't kill it with the Alpha. It would have taken 4. He would have blocked the Seraph with the Iron Thorn, blocked the 2/2 on the Iron Thorn and the 4/4 on the Seraph.
Yeah, very true, very true. He could have blocked down. I thought he might be able to edge it out, but you're correct. That was 4, so not going to be able to get it that way. And
this Throne Lord's incredibly punishing, though.
Yeah, this is game 5 we just got word of. So yeah, I think EX Kirby looks like he's going to take this one in game 5. I don't, unless Catalyst has some way to buff this, I don't see the Stone Scar Maul going away, and the Stone Scar Maul is just going to chip through one of these 2/2s for a massive amount of damage. Going to be 9 damage coming through to Catalyst, so he either needs to get himself out of range or get this hammer off.
I mean, I think Seraph Ultis is out, like Seraph hitting like an Icaria or something, or at least like a large creature. Well, it has to be Icaria, right? It would have to be a haste flyer that kills the weapon.
Yeah, more than likely. Yeah, finds a Teriax hatchling. Not going to it, unfortunately, here. So yeah, EX Kirby looks like he's just going to have a straight win here. We'll see how he blocks, but it shouldn't really matter. Yeah, he's just going to chump the 2/2 into the Martial Ironthorn. 2 damage crashes in air, and with no follow-up from Catalyst, that is going to do it.
Use the Overwhelm Torch for value.
Yeah, exactly. You got to get the Overwhelm Torch in there, since he does have Overwhelm on himself because of the Stone Scar Ball. He can get a little bit of extra damage in there, and doing a little bit of flavor. EX Kirby, the Overwhelm Torch, and finishing it up with that Stone Scar Maul. So EX Kirby is going to close out this series 3-2-2. So all of our games seem to be going to game 5 today, which is great. Players getting to play their decks out.
Yeah, it's awesome to see everything staying competitive. We've seen a lot of awesome decks today. People have added a lot of cool tech. I'm really actually excited to go play some of these decks we've seen today. I like a lot of the additions people have added, and it looks like everyone's kind of at the same level. Everything's been super close.
Yeah, it was very close. Yeah, we've seen some really cool decks today, though. I do have to agree. TFS Brimvault out of Lunga, which we saw just a few moments ago, was super cool. Zooch, notably, unfortunately, did not make it. He was just shy of top 8, but he had a really sweet run today with his Xenon control deck. That was also super impressive. A couple other decks floating around like Icaria Gold and things like that. So definitely been a great day. Yeah. I can give y'all information on the next round really quick before we cut. We'll go ahead and just run you guys down on that real quick. Sorlix, obviously we just watched with Rakano go 3-2 over Lunga. Komodo, who I believe was on Armory, but I cannot confirm, beat Ski J 3-1. Unearthly beat Jade Phoenix 3-1. Unearthly, very obviously, on Rakano, since he is extremely well known for it. And we have EX Kirby, who we also just saw closing out that last game there, 3-2 over Catalyst. So your semifinals will be Sorlix on Rakano versus Komodo on, again, I believe Armory, but don't quote me on that.
It is Armory, yes.
It is Armory? Cool. Yeah, FJS Armory, so traditional Armory. We've got, and then for our second semifinal, we have Unearthly against X Kirby, so another Rakano Armory. So our top 4 today is all Rakano and Armory decks. So goodbye Stone Scar, I guess. We finally see a week where Stone Scar doesn't even show up. Not putting up really any results.
Guess we're not nerfing Champion to Chaos anymore. It's fixed. It's okay, guys. We don't need to change it.
Yeah, I think the Champion to Chaos nerf happened. It was subtle, but everybody just decided universally that they didn't want to show up with the card. So no Stone Scar Menace this week. We're gonna have a Rakano-based deck in the finals and the winners. Yeah, in fact, all of these decks are technically Rakano-based that are in the top. So I think Nerf Rakano is now the new meme. So feel free to spam that in chat. We're pulling old memes back, bud.
Whatever wins needs to be changed. Whatever deck wins just has to get nerfed.
Yeah, we'll see. If we have another week of Rakano running, then who knows? Maybe there will start to be some consideration. But that's kind of how I felt about Stone Scar, and then it won 2 weeks in a row, and now it's just completely fallen off the face of the earth. So who knows? I think Stone Scar is just one of those weird decks that comes in and out of favor.
It's incredibly efficient. It has the best threats in the format. It has very efficient burn, but there are certainly the tools in the format available to beat it, as we have seen today.
Yep, absolutely. And a lot of people just not super confident in the deck's ability based on our significant decrease, I think, in the number of people bringing it